My favorite part of our trip was meeting the garment workers and the staff at the Solidarity Center. We had 2 days of meeting with them, eating with them, and hearing their heartbreaking stories of struggle. We heard survivor testimony from those who lived through the Rana Plaza disaster, from a woman who was trapped in the rubble with her mother's body for 3 days, to one who can't even be in a factory to this day because of the memories of her ordeal, trapped under a piece of the support column for more than a week before being rescued. We also heard from survivors and loved ones of those who died in the Tazreen factory fire. The workers in the factory were locked in by management to prevent them from stealing, and when the fire alarms went off, management all escaped and left the doors locked. Many of the workers jumped out the windows, and many more were killed by smoke and flame. Our delegation visited the Rana Plaza site, which today looks much different than it did. It's a large vacant lot in between 2 buildings, and the foundation is now a small lake where there are apparently catfish. It seemed very peaceful and idyllic, almost park-like in the busy hustle and bustle of Dhaka. However, a closer look revealed labels all around, H&M, Joe Fresh, and many more that still littered the site, reminding us that many people are still unaccounted for and were most likely taking their final rest underneath our feet. Back at the Solidarity Center, we heard the stories of the BCWS staff about their experiences in the workplace attempting to organize workers. They told of being threatened with firing, being physically assaulted. One woman was locked in a room and beaten, then had her clothes torn off and was in imminent danger of being raped, but managed to escape from the room and co-workers helped her find clothing and escape. One of the men was threatened with physical violence, then followed home by thugs hired by management, and his family was threatened. Kalpona's story is every bit as exciting and harrowing as her staff. She began working in a garment factory at 9 years old, which continues to happen today despite the excellent child labor laws which go largely unenforced. By the time she was 12, she was a union activist, and by 14, she was the president of the union she had helped form. By 2010, Kalpona was running the Bangladeshi Center for Worker Solidarity, which she helped build up from 1 room to the current 8 centers around the country. The centers help thousands of workers with education, support, direction to other resources, legal representation, filing applications for organization, and smaller, more intangible aids, up to and including a shoulder to cry on and a strong back to lean on. In 2010, there were massive strikes, demonstrations, and marches in an effort to increase the minimum wage to a living wage. Most workers were non-unionized but organizing on a grassroots level, and the BCWS was implicit in this effort. Due to their involvement in the fight to increase unionization, BCWS was targeted by the government, their registration as an NGO or a non-governmental organization was revoked, and they were unable to receive any further funding. They are not supported by dues. Instead, they help fund fledgling unions. On June 10, 2010, Amino Islam, one of the influential staffers at BCWS, went missing and was found a day later tortured and beaten to death. His body was dumped outside of the city. Kalpona went into hiding at the Solidarity Center. While she had offers of sanctuary in several embassies, she felt she had a duty to be available to workers during this dangerous time. On August 12, 2010, Kalpona was discovered and arrested. She was interrogated for 7 days with no rest, and remanded to the Central Women's Prison where women are housed like cattle with no sanitation system, no toilets, no place to wash for 21 days. She didn't eat anything at the prison. She was really afraid of being poisoned, and the food was appalling, basically moldy gruel. She waited for court days when her family would bring her food. She was accused of detonating an explosive and robbing a sunglasses shop, but was able to prove she was not in the city at the time of the crimes. All charges were dropped for lack of evidence. Through much fighting in court, BCWS eventually regained its NGO registration and is now working harder than ever to give Bangladeshis the courage, education, and strength to fight for their rights, dignity, and respect in an extremely challenging and difficult environment. The Solidarity Center works to support the 4.3 million workers in the garment industry. 90% of these workers are young women, on average 25 to 30 years old. Of these women, 99% came from rural villages to the cities. About half are married, but many single women migrate with family members, parents, grandparents, and siblings. Most of these families live in slum or semi-slum areas close to factories, in 12 by 12 one-room structures that house 7 to 8 people. All amenities are communal, and there are on average about 60 people to a single toilet, and between 20 and 30 people share a gas burner in the cooking area. An average day for a garment worker begins about 4 a.m. when women line up to wait for their turn at a shared water spigot for a shower, then dress and get their children up and ready for school, if the kids are lucky enough to have a spot in the overcrowded school system. Then they make lunch for their families and walk to work around 7 a.m. Most women live within 30 to 40 minutes from their workplaces. Then the real fun begins. A workday generally consists of 12 to 16 hours, though an 8-hour day is the legal standard. During work hours, garment workers experience a whole range of humiliating and intimidating behaviors, from verbal and physical abuse to sexual comments and unwanted touching. They're often docked pay for using the toilet, and if they are lucky enough to have a break for eating, it is taken out their sewing machines as quickly as possible. After work, women shop for dinner on the walk home, then take turns cooking for their families on the shared gas burner, if there's enough gas that day for everyone to have a turn in the cooking area.